Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday garden question and answer video that I have been doing for a while now on most Sundays. Next Sunday is actually the Subscriber Sunday video where subscribers send in photos of things in their yard they're proud of. If you're interested in sending in photos for that, this is the email address right here. And that, like I said, that's the first Sunday of every month. All the other Sundays I answer gardening questions that people ask on these videos. If you have a gardening question you'd like for me to answer, ask it at the bottom of this video under the description. I had a lot of questions this past week. I don't even think I'm going to be able to put them all in this video. I try to keep them a reasonable length. If I'm short some questions on one coming up, I'll go back and go through some additional questions. So thanks everybody for participating in this. Getting more and more views on these each week, so I'm guessing we're going in the right direction with this Sunday question and answer video. One thing I want to talk about before I get to the questions this week is Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's right here. It's at HortTube, and the 2.5 years or whatever that I've been putting photos on Instagram, I've really not had any direction with it. I just put up random flower photo or random photo from this or that, and it just I've never really figured out what I was going to do with it. But now, over the last week, those of you who follow me over there may be noticing that I am doing longer content. I'm putting up whatever photos of things that I'm doing from that day. I'm announcing upcoming videos, projects that I was working on that day. I'm building a shed at the new house. You can follow along with the shed building. I did a landscape job, or started a landscape job yesterday. And that was on there, and just going through, you can see things that are upcoming from the video channel and things that won't ever go up on the video channel if you're interested. But anyway, follow me on Instagram for that. And like I say, I'm just going to go to a longer story type format of what's going on with the channel and the things that I have going on, some of the things that you won't see on the video channel here. So there's that. Okay, let's get to some questions. Somebody asked me about the best time to move a rhododendron, and I think that would be after we get a hard freeze here in the fall. So wherever you're at, once you get a hard freeze, you can move a rhododendron. The buds are on it for next year's flowers, and if I was going to move one, I'd probably take those off. I'd probably cut the plant back just a little bit to compensate for the root damage you're going to do. Nobody's going to want to do that or hear that. Typically, you prune rhododendrons after they bloom because, like I say, they bloom on old growth. And so cutting it now is going to cost you next spring's blooms, but you're best to do that for the health of the plant. Somebody pointed out that their gardenia and their Rosa Sharon did not bloom this year, and they're somewhere, I can't remember where they were, in North Carolina or Georgia, maybe. I don't remember where that question was from, but I've seen Rosa Sharon this year that didn't bloom, that they got budded up because we got some good rains early in the summer, and then the rains just kind of shut off, and it really shut a lot of those plants down. I'm assuming that they were dry. We've had 2 long dry stints this year, one in the southeast, one from about March until late June, and the other one from about mid-August until now. Really, we just haven't gotten a heck of a lot of rain even up until now. So I'm assuming that they were just abnormally dry. Both of those things bloom on new growth. So as long as they're growing, they'll flower. So if something stopped them from growing, like drought, that would be the thing that would stop them from flowering. Somebody asked me about aphids on their Corkscrew Willow, wanting to know if neem oil was okay to spray. It's so late now, it's probably unnecessary to spray. The tree's about to lose its leaves anyway, so I don't know how beneficial it would be at this point, but neem oil or insecticidal soap would be the 2 things that I would use next year. I don't know where you are with those Corkscrew Willows, but here in my area of North Carolina, I've seen them dropping dead like crazy. Any of them that are, the heat, whatever changes we've seen in the world or the environment or whatever you want to call it, we've definitely seen pressure on Corkscrew Willows. I've seen them, a lot of dead ones, and I don't see anybody really selling them or growing them or even planting them at this point in my area. So I don't know if it's under more stress, than it would have been in the past, and that allows insects and disease problems to really run amok a little more. That'll be something to keep an eye on. If it's not a problem you've had in the past, and then all of a sudden it's becoming more and more of a problem, keep in mind weakened plants are more susceptible to those problems. Somebody asked about, they have a slope that's covered in thyme, kind kind of a funny thing. The herb, thyme, and it grows really flat to the ground. It makes a great ground cover. They have a slope, but they want to start putting some shrubs on it. You're going to need to clear out enough of that thyme in order to allow your shrubs to get established. Once your shrubs get established, they'll be able to compete with it. But if all you did was cut a little hole in it big enough for the shrub, they could really struggle next year. Also, that thyme has the ability to, once something mats onto the surface really tight, it has the tendency to hold too much water underneath it as well. So it could end up keeping your shrubs a little wet, even on a slope. Junipers are bad for that. People use junipers on slopes because they like dry conditions. And they're really dry conditions until the juniper completely covers the slope. And then all of a sudden the bank actually starts to stay a little wet. And then the junipers struggle because they have too much water under them. They're almost their own worst enemy by blocking the sunlight from allowing the water to evaporate, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you need to keep the thyme back from your shrubs for a full season. Once you do that, I think you can let it try to come back under. It's not even going to be able to compete because if it goes back, it won't tolerate any shade. So the shrubs will create some shade. Let's see. Somebody said they had a sweet bay magnolia they had planted 4 years ago and it has not put on any growth. Said they have clay soil. I don't think that probably has all that much to do with it. This is always a tough decision for me. If I have something that, I always talk about, don't worry about what something looks like in the first year. Don't even worry about how much it grew in the second year. By the third or fourth year, I want to see some movement. I want to see some growth. I want to see some activity on something that I put in the ground. My guess is it was planted too deep or something. There's something going on with it. I don't know how big of a plant it is, but if it's a reasonably sized plant, I'll pop a plant out of the ground in a minute and raise it up a little bit. I'll just assume that it was originally planted too deep, and it may not have been planted too deep by you. It's a possibility. Plants in the nursery business now can be changed hands several times. So, you know, there's probably a company that rooted it, then sold it to another nursery, and that nursery could have put it in a 1 gallon pot too deep, or you know, there's places that just grow 1 gallons and sell them to 3 gallon or field grown folks. Plants get planted several times by several different nurseries, potentially. So it could have been done there, or the landscaper that put it in, or when you put it in, that kind of thing. But I always assume after 3 or 4 years, if a plant's not responding and not growing, that it's planted improperly. And normally that means too deep. And I'll go and just stick a shovel under it, try to raise it up, try to put some soil under it. Again, if it's a 10-foot tall tree, I don't know how that's going to work for you. You can, at that point, just go back and try to pull mulch and soil back from it as much as you can and see if that helps next year. Somebody asked me why I don't have any Weigelia videos on the channel, and there's no particular reason. I'm in almost zone 8, and they don't really like to be here all that much. And so I never just have good examples of them to film. I do like Weigelia, and I may put one at the new house. Like I say, I do like them, especially variegated ones, but no particular reason, no dislike of the plant. You won't see a lot. And I'm probably, unfortunately, been conditioned to this because so many customers over the years, they don't want things to lose their leaves. They don't want things to lose their leaves. And so I probably have become conditioned to favor evergreen plants over deciduous plants, despite the fact that deciduous plants that go to sleep in the winter, lose their leaves, often are more colorful, more vibrant, have nicer foliage because they took a rest in the wintertime. I'm probably, like I say, conditioned by customers to value evergreen plants over deciduous plants, and that's wrong, honestly wrong. Like I say, who's outside in January anyway? Who cares if it loses its leaves? So that's probably my fault as well for not, you'll probably see a lot more plants that keep their leaves than not on my channel. Somebody asked me about mosquitoes, how to control mosquitoes in mulch, but I don't think mosquitoes need actual water to be in. They won't be in your mulch proper. There's some place that's holding water that is allowing them to do their thing. And all they need is like a thimble full of water, from what I understand. It's usually gutters. Gutters are a big problem for having standing water in a gutter or in a downspout or in a pipe that runs away from the house or that kind of thing is probably what it is. But it won't have anything to do with your mulch or how much you're watering your plants. It definitely has to do with standing water somewhere, and it could be in your neighbor's yard just as easily as it could be in your yard. Obviously, they move around. They typically then like to go to places where there's not a lot of air movement. And so the only place I've ever had in this yard where I have bad mosquito problems are in the back corner on my northeast corner back here, because there's no wind, no air movement through there whatsoever. So they just have a field day back there with anything that walks into that space. But out here, the air moves around and that kind of thing. But don't worry about mosquitoes in your mulch. But do worry about standing water anywhere in your yard that you can go and dump it, because that's where they're coming from. Somebody wanted to know about having a Boston fern inside over the winter, and really there's just, you have to mist it constantly, or they suggest, said something about putting it in a plastic bag or something. You need some sort of terrarium, or you have to mist it constantly. I've got, I don't know if you can see this one hanging right here. I've got 3 big, beautiful ones here. I won't mess with trying to overwinter them. They're just, they'll defoliate in the house and make such a big, giant mess in there. You can cut them back hard and then put them in some sort of terrarium. That would definitely work. But other than that, it's really, really difficult because your house is so dry. The ferns definitely want the opposite of what it's like in your house in January. Somebody wanted a narrow upright plant for a container in Zone 8 in Seattle. I've got a video on that mood ring podocarpus. I believe maybe I've already have a video on the channel for it. It's called mood ring podocarpus. It's an upright, podocarpus is like a false U. It looks like a U, but it's not. It's in its own family of plants. But I have a video coming out for that, 2-minute video coming out for that mood ring podocarpus. That is one, I've had that mood ring podocarpus that's in that upcoming video in that container for 2 years. And it's in a 5-gallon container. It's only that big around. It would like to be in a bigger container at this point, but I have been super impressed. And it's tall, upright, and narrow. Oh, it was in my 30 screening plant video. I don't know which, maybe in part 2, I can't remember. But the video series that I put up previously this week that had 1, 2, and 3 parts of 10 screening plants in each one, that mood ring podocarpus was in it. That would be my choice. And then somebody asked me about putting ryegrass. This will be the last one for this week. Somebody asked me about putting ryegrass over their St. Augustine grass in Texas, and I would definitely do it. I've got centipede in this yard, and I overseed it with rye most winters. So another thing about this house, I said it was sold, and it was sold, and the people backed out in the 11th hour. I got their earnest money, so I'm not really complaining all that much, but it was, I was very close to closing on this house, and it hasn't happened. 4 sale signs back out there. It was only on the market it's only been on the market 3 days out of 3 weeks because of that. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put annual ryegrass over this. So I don't know how long this is going to be on the market, so I'm about to do the same thing. St. Augustine is for those of you who live in northern areas, St. Augustine is a warm season grass. It goes dormant in the winter. I don't know how far in South Texas you are, but up here it would go dormant in the winter. It turns brown. So we have, in my area, we can grow St. Aug not as well. St. Aug is really a Florida, Texas, Gulf Coast grass, but we can grow it here. St. Aug, Bermuda, centipede, and zoysia. Those would be our 4 warm season grasses that we can grow in the South, where you guys are growing either, we're growing some fescue here too. And then you would have fescue or bluegrass or perennial ryegrass. And there's a dividing line about where I am, where we can not grow any of them very well, but we try. But yeah, in the winter time when the warm season grasses go dormant, we can overseed them with annual rye. And annual rye keeps our lawns green in the wintertime. And also it does a good job of breaking up soil underneath it and then becoming organic material in the spring that the zoysia grass can feed on, or the St. Augustine can feed on. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching these videos and participating. Ask questions down below. And I know I skipped a few this week. There were just a lot of questions. And if I'm short, like I say, at some point I will go back and answer those. So thank you very much for watching.